Hello, welcome back to C Story Corner. It's time for book 6.5 of my youth romantic comedy, As Wrong as I Expected. As a reminder, I'm reviewing the book, not the anime. Wow. You know when they say the book's better than the movie? Well, in this case, the book is like 1,000,000 times better than the anime. Though this is mainly because the anime didn't have the story arc of the book in it. What am I talking about? 6.5 is the storyline of the sports festival. And it's wonderful, read it, because you're not getting any of the story in the anime, minus pretty much a page near the beginning, and the last chapter. So this book starts soon after the end of the cultural festival, which if you remember leaves Hachiman the most hated guy in school. Even in his internal thoughts, he can't escape how rejected by everyone he is. Walking into the service club, and the girls not offering tea, only make that more poignant. So he brings his own coffee. Harsh. What makes this more difficult is the nasty, nasty Sagami. Seriously, I don't like that girl. Unlike Yui, who started off terrible and chose to change herself for the better, Sagami starts off as the absolute pits, and instead of trying to be better, or at least just not be worse, she spends excessive energy tearing at Hachiman through spreading half-truths and constantly making him out to be the villain, even though he's the only reason she's not the laughingstock of the school. Anyway, her behavior isn't just hurting Hachiman. Though he insists to himself it doesn't bother him. It's making the atmosphere in their class unbearable for everyone, and is upsetting Yui and Yukino, even if they won't admit it. They even receive a request to deal with Sagami to make it all stop by, surprisingly, Miura, the popular queen. Not surprisingly, though, Hachiman doesn't want to do anything. Despite Yukino and Yui arguing that something should be done, Hachiman insists that it'll all blow over eventually, 'cause these things always do. Insisting what Sagami is doing is functionally harmless. Yukino stares him down, though, and rejects his declaration with, "It's not harmless." I can honestly say, I don't understand this. Why say harmful, hurtful things to Hachiman, and even refuse to offer him tea, then get upset when he insists he's fine being bullied, and tell him it's not? Seriously, is he their little brother or something? I mean, I can see Yukino do that with her blunt and repressed personality. It totally makes sense for her. But Yui? Yeah, she's just a terrible person. A socialite butterfly who can read a crowd and get along with whoever she wants, and she can't back off on bullying someone she thinks she likes. Yui, step up. You're getting higher on my bad list. Anyway, back to the summary. Miura's request isn't the only one they get. They also get one from the student council president, Shiro Magiri. This one seems easier than the first, but not by much. Magiri is a third year, and this will be her last sports festival. She wants a fun one she'll actually remember. And to win. But who doesn't want to win, right? Anyway, she asked the service club for help with the sports festival, jumping quickly to ask first Yukino, then Yui, to be the sports festival committee chair. Both decline, but Yukino suggests the pitiful failure Sagami to chair the committee after nearly causing the cultural festival to crash and burn. As you can imagine, this surprises everyone. But it's not a horrible idea. By getting Sagami to do it, she might actually step up and do a good job, regaining face and no longer feeling the need to attack those below her on the social ladder to console herself. So, they go for it. Leaving Hachiman out of the negotiation with Sagami, for a good reason, and roping Hayama in, they succeed in getting Sagami on board. As you may guess, she bungles it on day one. Not only does she come inexcusably late, but she arrives with a flippant attitude that turns everyone off. She also fails to realize the meaning of her position. She's an executive, not a crew member, so she needs to act like it, but doesn't. This loses her what little respect the crew had for her position, and slowly things erode until the executives are doing everything, and the crew have taken the sports festival hostage. As you can guess, it's Hachiman's idea that gets them out of this mess, but requires a lot of effort on Sagami's side. And, well, Hachiman's great at calculating most everything. But he makes a little mistake. The committee ends up yelling and screaming at each other, and Sagami ends up in tears, but not before getting out her own feelings. And though it's hard to say the meeting went well, it was successful in achieving the desired end goal. The executives taking back the authority they needed to get the festival preparations moving again. By the end, things work out for the festival, and Sagami finally backs off Hachiman. Not that it improves things for him much. Quote, "Once feelings have changed our positions, things are different." Quote, "Once things go sour, They can never go back. Though he's not necessarily talking about himself when he thinks these, you know he is. He understands that his position at school as number one hated person won't be changing, and because he gave up long ago, he's not going to try changing it. He's even started preparing himself mentally for his relationship with Yukino and Yui to fall apart and him returning to being alone. Quote, watching their exchange, I found myself smiling a bit. This was a trivial, mundane exchange, but right after a big event like the sports festival, it had been sorely missed. I'd become used to this daily routine before I even noticed. One day, I'll be used to my life without it, too. Tear, right? Everything he knows says this will crumble and he'll lose again, and he can't stop it, so he prepares. Ah, this book is good. Read it. You're missing out on the anime by not doing so. Anyway, throughout the pages, 2 themes really stuck out to me. The first being relationships and the fragility of them, and the second being consequences, and how we can't escape them. These go hand in hand for the most part, and even when they aren't directly linked, they're still tied together. And this makes sense. As soon as you form connections, what affects them affects you, and vice versa. Neither do those connections have to be amiable or positive. So we'll start there. The first connection we see, causing a good bit of grief, is one developed between Hachiman and Sagami in the last book. He didn't pull any punches with her, and at the same time, he saved her. But her, being the nasty, terrible girl she is, doesn't care. Instead of being ashamed of her own behaviors and failures, that drove Hachiman into having to choose to let her become the laughingstock of the school and take Yukino down with her, or sacrifice himself multiple times. She hates him for the truths he threw, not so gently, in her face. From this, she uses all her other connections to draw in pity and attention. The thing is, this behavior doesn't work on everyone. There were people there who saw her failures and know the truth. Too bad they aren't in Hachiman's class. They do, however, end up being on the sports festival committee crew, and they haven't forgotten. And because they hold a good bit of resentment toward Sagami, they pretty much do what she did in the last book, and sabotage the sports festival to get back at her. Ah, see? Relationships and consequences. Even trying to parse one out, it drags the other in. There's also the consequences of Hachiman's self-sacrifice running rampant through this book. And though not all of them are bad, none of them are great. Like I said, instead of being generally ignored and waved aside as a quiet, creepy kid, others now direct their animosity and hatred toward him, saying horrible things so he can hear, making it obvious they're talking about him when whispering to their friends by shooting him glares, and even putting trash in his locker. I'll tell you what, I am definitely glad my lockers all had locks on them, and that I never had to share one. I can't imagine what those jerks would have done to me if not. On the upside, kinda, it seems Hayama has gained a twisted kind of respect for Hachiman. Yeah, not great, but it could be worse. And I even wonder if Miura, the popular queen, has some misgivings about her previous opinions of him. Depending on how you read it, it could go either way. Biggest of all, his relationship with Yukino and Yui is fundamentally changed due to the consequences of the previous book. Before his final self-sacrifice, things were getting comfortable between them again. But afterward, well, it's still more comfortable than when Hachiman was depressing himself trying to figure everything out. But, well, he now sees himself as even lower, and he's quick to tell them not to bother with anything concerning that status. He's even quick to say he's good with how things are. But the 2 girls see it's not fine, and they do come off as being truly worried about him. Instead of seeing him as this strange guy with twisted ideas that kinda work, or as a wonderful banter partner, they're becoming protective of him, at least protective when it comes to other people. But as I've said before, this makes sense for Yukino. Between her personality and how she goes about things, it feels perfectly natural to me. Also, considering how well Hachiman and Yukino understand each other, I can see her choosing to be mean, to both hide her own concern for him, and to make him more comfortable during this less than enjoyable time. Yukino understands Hachiman well enough that she could easily get and even share this particular sentiment of his. Quote, "It feels better, if only a little, when someone treats you badly, because then you can feel they don't understand you." So even though the mean things Yukino say are just as sharp as always, I can see her understanding this about him, and doing so to give him stability and comfort in her own twisted way. Because, face it, Yukino is just as twisted as Hachiman. But that's the downfall of loners. Yui, on the other hand, just comes off as being mean because she can be, and because Yukino is. There's no meaning behind it, she's just chameleoning it up again. But whatever, she's a pretty big ditz. Her actually wanting to change the situation in at least some part to specifically help Hachiman is more than I honestly expected from her. And so, I'm happy with that. The upside of the relationship consequences we see in this book are between Yukino and Yui. Thanks to Hachiman pretty much ditching the two so they could talk and get their friendship back on track, Yukino and Yui are doing good. They're better at being on the same page, and Yukino is actually depending on and trusting Yui more. Yay! Yukino is leveling up! At the same time, Yui is more confidently using her strengths cultivated from a lifetime of being part of the top caste to do positive, useful things, like inspire and bring people together, and smooth things over so open communication can happen more easily. Not to mention steering things away from total breakdown. Definitely a huge improvement over her always freaking out about not doing the popular thing. Other, less obvious consequences are happening as well, but I'll let you enjoy discovering them by reading. When it comes to the various consequences and relationships that we see impacted throughout the book, I think the saddest one of all is Hachiman's relationship with himself. Everything he's done, every choice he's made, whether willingly or not, for his sake or for someone else's, has led him to being hated by the school, and surface-wise hated by Yukino and Yui, though I'm sure this one will blow over after the sting of defeat leaves Yukino's heart. But the worst part, it's left him hating himself. Everything he's done, every choice he's made, whether willingly or not, for his sake or someone else's, has led him to being hated by the school, and hated by himself. The best Hachiman can see himself as is a necessary evil. Quote, "Good guys can't exist without bad guys. My existence as a teen failure enables others to enjoy a brilliant youth. This is because people love comparisons. Just the thought that you're more fortunate than someone else can make you happy." What really makes this hit hard is Yukino's response to Hachiman calling himself a necessary evil. Quote, "The majority of self-proclaimed necessary evils are just evil." Harshly, Yui quickly agrees. Quote, "Yeah, you can't even say for sure if they're necessary." And though Hachiman asks them not to imply he's unnecessary, the protest is weak, and you get the feeling he doesn't disagree. Being a meaniehead, though, Wataru-san interrupts Hachiman's inevitable ruminating by having Magiri appear immediately. I wanted more depth into his internal workings right there, you know? But that's okay. There's a lot in this book to cipher out and to ponder, so I'm fine with getting more of that in Book 7. Surface level, this book doesn't feel as heavy as the Cultural Festival one, but if you look past the surface, you realize just how turbulent the waters are. Particularly, those drowning Hachiman's heart. Poor guy. But there's still a bunch more books left. Hachiman-kun, I'm sure Wataru-san is a much nicer writer than I am, and you'll get a truly happy ending. Though, I won't lie, I'd be disappointed if there wasn't a good bit more turmoil. Sorry, Hachiman. Just be glad you're not my Ferdinand. Thank you very much for your time. Stay safe and healthy, everyone.